Thank you for taking your time on the first day of Comic-Con to be here at 8 o'clock. It means a lot to us. But my name is Sharma. I'm an actor and host out in LA, and I was brought on by the lovely Victoria Male here to moderate today's panel, Nostalgia as a Double-Edged Sword. We're going to jump into nostalgia, what it means for us, like as a generation, like how it affects our financial decisions, the sociopolitics of nostalgia. But before we get started, obviously we have a lovely panel of experts here. I just would like to go down the line, if that's okay, if everyone can introduce themselves, who you are, and we'll get started.
Hi, my name is Bryce Charles. I'm an actor, singer, cosplayer.
Good evening. My name is Peter Guse. I am, I guess, what you would consider a social media influencer, although I don't consider myself to be one, and a podcaster, and most recently, an author.
Hello, my name is Godboldo. I am an actor and a producer. I run a nonprofit organization for youth mentoring, and recently I'm a new author as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Marwa Abdallah. I teach in the School of Television, Theater, Film, and New Media at San Diego State University. I'm wrapping up a doctorate at UC San Diego in the Department of Communication, and my work looks at media, popular culture, and representation.
Hi everyone, I'm Victoria Male. I'm a writer, producer, and nostalgia fanatic, and I just want to say, as the person who put together this panel, how thankful I am to have each and every one of you here. Here in the audience and here on this panel, I am geeking and freaking out.
Amazing. Raise your hand if you spent money today on something that reminded you of childhood. I'm just curious. Yeah, Comic-Con does that to you, right? So it's kind of a perfect setting to have this conversation about nostalgia. First off, just like opening up to all of you on the panel, when you hear the word nostalgia, what's the first things that come to mind? I'm just curious.
Core memories, something that makes me feel sentimental, warm and fuzzy inside.
I guess I like that a lot. Anyone else? Any first thoughts here?
Cosby Show.
The Cosby Show. Interesting.
Yeah, I think for me it's dancing in my childhood home basement to all the boy bands and pop princesses of the late 90s and early aughts.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm a big cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons, Disney.
Absolutely.
Comic books, like all of that is dredged up in this head of mine when I think of nostalgia, and I spend a lot of money on nostalgia too, don't feel too bad. But we do want to talk about kind of the pros and cons of it, right? The good and the bad of nostalgia. But Dale, I want to start with you. I don't know if anyone knows this, but Dale used to be in the Mickey Mouse Club. Let's get kind of amazing, right? You shared the screen with the likes of Ryan Gosling, Chazé, Justin Timberlake. But you were able to convert that love of fandom, the people who know you from the Mickey Mouse Club, to kind of uplift and I don't know, help a youth, like you said, to pursue their own creative paths. So what role do you think nostalgia played in creating opportunities for the youth?
Yeah, nostalgia is, as we all know, because we all feel it, is an extraordinarily powerful emotional state, and it's a powerful tool. And it's not often used as a tool, nearly as much as I think it should be. So about 10 years ago, myself and many other Mouseketeers reunited with thousands of fans, and really said, okay, let's throw back and spend some time and build community around the 90s where we all grew up together, but there's more there, let's use that. So our time on the show, we were mentored by some of the most extraordinary creators in the world. There's a reason so many kids came off that show and did so well. To me, that's an opportunity to sort of take that mentorship and apply it to the next generation of young artists. So now we're 501c3 and we support youth arts education and mentoring opportunities for kids. So Mouseketeers get together, we volunteer for other kids. We also raise money for all sorts of causes, from helping critically ill children with free trips to Disney World. We help, we empower women who are victims of domestic abuse. And we've raised about $4.5 million over the last few years, just for various causes. So for me, using nostalgia as a tool to, as a springboard to make current impact, I think it's what drives me.
Can I ask, how much are you reminiscing about that past 2 years? I'm just
All the time. Well, we run a charity that's based on, nostalgia, so every day, all day. Matter of fact, my social media guy here is here, Anthony Donovan, is in the office, and he runs one of our social media handles, which is called 90s Mickey Mouse Club on Instagram, and literally every day we post clips from the Mickey Mouse Club all day. So if you're into that,
Instant follow.
it's some great stuff, and it's just nostalgia. It's great.
I just want to testify to the legacy of the show, because it's amazing what you've done, Dale, having nostalgia be a force for good, but also the performances on the Mickey Mouse Club hold up. Y'all were freaking talented.
Victoria, what was that video that you sent me to watch with the R&B song?
Oh, Cry For You. The first time Dale and I ever spoke, I was like, I could write a thesis on your performance of Cry For You with JC, Justin, and Ryan, and he didn't hang up the phone, and I'm very confused but thankful.
Yeah, it's a good one. You guys should look that up right after this. I do want to talk about kind of the current day. Like, Bryce, for you, you're a performer, right? I think it's so cool that you are doing DCOM live. Like DCOMs were my thing for a while, So being able to kind of revive that love in a way and present it is very, very cool to me. Obviously, you've been able to kind of harness that power of nostalgia to make these performances happen. But can you just talk about that journey? Like, why was it important to kind of harken back to those memories, those core memories that you were mentioning before?
I have been very fortunate and very grateful for the opportunities that I've had to have a lot of full circle moments in my growing career. And I think I don't know, when I find myself in creative spaces or in projects that have nostalgic value to me, I find that my energy in those spaces are different. I just am a little more excited. There's this electric energy because I'm coming into it with love and appreciation. So I have some examples. I am a big K-pop fan, a really big K-pop fan, and BTS is my first K-pop love. And I put a lot of that energy out into creative spaces that I was in, fellow singers and friends, and then through networking and just leading as a fan of various fandoms, but in this case with K-pop, I ended up getting to work with them and singing backup for them. And so it just sort of, I think to me, shows that when you are professional and prepared, and then also just a fan, then you sort of attract that same type of energy out in these creative spaces, and you end up finding yourself feeling really fulfilled. I feel like I've been very grateful to feel fulfilled in another example with DCOM Live. I'm working with friends. You get to a point when you get to work with friends because they're like-minded people in the industry that have ideas and have the same core memories. And I think with nostalgia being the main factor in a show like DCOM Live, it's bringing us together through those shared core memories, that shared connection to, oh my gosh, remember when Cheetah Girls first came out, and whenever it came on and they kept playing that same music video of Hillary Duff in between all the commercial breaks, and then
Coming Clean.
Yes, Come Clean. Yes, I actually get to sing that song in the DCOM live show. And it's such I don't know, people wouldn't expect it of me to be a Hillary Duff fan, but I am. I love her music. And when I hear the music of that time, I'm instantly transported. I think music has a really powerful nostalgic factor. But when it comes to K-pop or DCOM Live, hearing music that instantly just draws people together, I think is a really beautiful thing, that nostalgia has that connective power.
Out of curiosity, because I know you were on the Fuller House, which is cool.
Yeah.
I grew up with Full House, and I wonder how does being on something like that or doing the DCOM Live stuff differ from the other projects that aren't necessarily rooted in an IP from the past or nostalgia?
Sure. I mean, with Fuller House, I did grow up watching Full House, so that was also another full circle moment. It was really exciting to get to meet a lot of the original cast. And so going into that, again, I'm going in as a fan, so I have a respect and appreciation and love for the whole legacy of the show. And then, so something about that I think is really comforting to me, going into a space when I already know the legacy, and I already know that other people are going to be on the same wavelength of we're all here to celebrate this, this piece, this project, this creative idea. And then in projects where maybe there isn't a long-standing legacy or there isn't a familiar IP, then for me, I'm like, okay, how do I move in the space? I know I'm going to be prepared and professional, but I think the nostalgia factor does help there be an element of comfort and a like-mindedness that I already know exists in the space. But then, you know, you talk with people, and then you talk about other topics, and then I get really nerdy, and then I'm like, oh, so you like anime? Okay, so let's talk about these things. And then all of a sudden, nostalgia's back in the picture of like, oh, did you grow up watching, you know, Toonami? And did you know, like that kind of thing. All of a sudden, you start connecting dots with people. But if it's not already embedded in the project, then you find it behind the scenes.
Yeah, I find it really hard not to be nostalgic a lot of the time. Like I'm such a nerd. Like if you look at my room, there's a Tron poster, right? There's Nightcrawler, there's a Stormtrooper helmet. And Peter, I'm going to kick it to you. First of all, I love what you do for millennials. I'm a millennial, and you really look out for our mental health. You speak on things that I think we're all feeling. You should definitely check him out. We're going to get our tags out in the end, but you talked about something called Dissociation Nation on one of your reels, and you called it a place where we all congregate to get away from our problems and use nostalgia to cope. Wow, I'm coping all the time. So in the time,
I am a citizen of
yes, we're all, I don't know, raise your hand if you're a citizen of Dissociation Nation. Yes, yes, welcome. We are few but mighty, but we're not few. But in your time discussing kind of the mental health aspect for the generation, I wonder what you've learned about the effect that nostalgia does actually have on someone's psyche.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're talking about here today, right? The double-edged sword, right? So like, let's break it down. And I think there's the surface level, right? Where it's like, if you ask millennials why we love the 90s so much, we would probably say something along the lines of, you know, it was such a great time, and we miss our favorite shows, and maybe things were a little bit more peaceful. And yeah, bad things still happened, of course, right? But maybe it was the lack of technology, but it just felt more normal, for lack of a better term, right? And then everything changed. It was Columbine, and then 9/11, Y2K, and the 2008 Great Recession when we were all just becoming adults. And we miss it, right? We miss that time in our lives. But if we kind of like take it that level deeper, not only are we all kind of stuck here in our 30s, maybe early 40s, just completely burnt out beyond a crisp, but it feels like we've lost that part of ourselves, right? And just like Bryce was saying, when we listen to our favorite 90s nostalgic playlists, or when we're rewatching our favorite Mickey Mouse Club cartoons, right? It takes us back. And when we're coming to Comic-Con and we're dressing up as our favorite childhood heroes, right? Even if it's just for that little sliver moment in time, it's like, oh yeah, like that's who I am. That's the version of me that got lost and stuck 20 to 25 years ago. Now the flip side, of course, is, of course, there always has to be a flip side, right?
Balance in all things.
Yeah. You know, if you were to talk to a, I don't know, psychologist, psychiatrist, they would probably say that this is some sort of very unique way of like psychological regression, where when your outside world is a complete dumpster fire, your brain has this pretty clever way of regressing back to a time in your life where things did feel a little bit more normal. And it's not a bad thing, right? It's just an awareness. But it's also one of those things where the longer that we stay living in a moment of our past, the longer that we, again, dissociate from dealing with what's right here in the present. And the way I kind of like to think about it is like it's a shaken up soda bottle, right? Where it's like every time that we say, okay, I'm just gonna deal with that tomorrow, or, you know, distract me from this. Let me do anything I can right now to not deal with that. We just shove it down, we shove it down, we shove it down. And then eventually we get to this place where it's like it takes so much energy just to keep the damn cap on the bottle that when you do finally come back to the present moment and you decide to unscrew the cap, it's probably not going to be all that pretty, right? And so I think it's being able to find that balance between how do you feel it to heal it, while also, you know, Gail, you mentioned this, using nostalgia as a tool in your tool belt to be able to create that internal sense of peace and calm when everything around you feels like it's chaos. And I think that's really when you get down to like, okay, well, how do you use millennial nostalgia as a tool? I think that's what it is, at least for me, is being able, because the world's crazy, right? Like they want whoever they is, politicians, the corporate overlords, whatever, they want you to stay stuck in fear and stress mode, right? But when we remember those times in our lives, when we replay those favorite cartoons, right? When we dress up as our superhero, people that we love so much, it's a way for us to almost like give ourselves that intrinsic motivation to say, okay, clearly the old playbook's no longer working. I've spent all my life doing things the way that society programmed and conditioned me to do, so if that's not making me rich or happy, why not at least make myself happy by being your own superhero? Go back and rescue the version of you that got stuck 20 to 25 years ago. Because, I think we all just deserve to feel a little bit more joy.
That was beautiful. Last night hit me. I want to cry. Amazing. Thank you. Victoria, I want to talk about the they that Peter mentioned a little bit, because when we had our discussion planning for this, you mentioned that nostalgia is something that doesn't go out of style. And you have a really interesting relationship to nostalgia in media and the corporate studio, kind of like machine that makes this work. Can you kind of explain what your experience is working in nostalgia for a consumer audience?
Sure. I was a Ghostbuster for 5 years. I worked for the Ghostbusters franchise under Ivan Reitman from, what were the years? 2017 to 2022. And it was really interesting because I would say Ghostbusters, I mean, I know most of us grew up on that film and watched it every Halloween, but that was also almost like an earlier era of nostalgia, because it was the 80s, the first movie came out in 84, and I entered the production company at a really interesting time for the Ghostbusters franchise, because the 2016 all-female reboot had just recently not performed as Sony had hoped it would. And then subsequently, I got to watch the franchise be rehabilitated through Ghostbusters Afterlife. And I think Jason Reitman, who directed that film and happened to be Ivan Reitman, the director of the original film's son, thread such a beautiful needle there. And something that I wish more filmmakers would do when they're adapting an IP, where he walked the line of giving us all the nostalgic beats and the callbacks that we wanted. We see the Ecto one. We have a version of Slimer. We get to see Bill, Dan, and Ernie in their proton packs. But he also set everything up. He introduced us to a new cast of characters to love, and started a new chapter in the franchise. Because something I've learned from working in development and production for the past 10 years is, and it feels like it's come to very much a fever pitch in the last 5. And I know Dale and Bryce can speak to this too, as fellow industry folk, is there's this idea of risk aversion, and studios don't want to invest in a new idea. They'd rather make another Ghostbusters. They'd rather make Practical Magic 2 or The Devil Wears Prada 2. Or, don't get me wrong. I've seen the new Superman. Don't get me wrong. I've seen the new Superman twice, but okay, let's reboot Superman again. I think, and it just feels like recently there's been, it's also pulling in what Peter said, is they're capitalizing on this fear and this uncertainty to just sell us back our nostalgia rather than invest in new ideas and create what's going to be the nostalgia of today, basically for Gen Alpha. And I think it's really interesting, especially, Bryce and I are about the same age, she's a little younger than me actually. It presents, I think, a really interesting and tricky problem for millennials breaking into this industry, where it used to be you just needed a great script or you just need to be hella talented, and now it's how do you had to have an IP that was famous 30 years ago. Or if maybe you're lucky enough to be cast on Full House, with people writing Full House, they're just bringing back the creator, or the person who wrote Practical Magic 2 wrote Practical Magic 1. So it feels like the powers that be are kind of closing ranks. So we don't get to contribute to the next chapter of this nostalgia, but we're all expected to be consumers of it.
Yeah. It's interesting, Mara, as someone much smarter than you.
No, I'm so smart. I'm over here singing the Full House tune. I've got Ghostbusters in the back of my mind, all the Bill songs, like, so yeah, no.
No,
all of you.
I'm curious because I feel like you would have some insight, but how do you think studios and this like corporate machine manipulate those feelings that, like, you know, Peter had mentioned, or like Victoria had mentioned, to kind of prey in a way on consumers like ourselves?
Yeah, so thank you all. First of all, Victoria, amazing panel. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. I think we need to realize nostalgia, yes, it gives us good feelings, right? It actually has been shown to be an antidote for anxiety, feelings of isolation. It can be a reprieve from sadness. So nostalgia can be very good in the right dose. But nostalgia also, I want us to understand, is not just a neutral thing, especially the way that it exists in our media landscape today. And I'd actually want to make the argument that nostalgia is a political and financial technology. So what does that mean? It means that when we remember the past, when we nostalgize, we actually don't remember things as if they were a high fidelity etching in our brain. We tend to remember things, and psychologists call this selective cognition. We remember things that have a very strong affective or emotional dimension, and I'm sure all of us, that resonates with us, right? But in remembering that, we interpret the moment that we felt those feelings in ways that support our current worldview. And even if our interpretation and memory of those past events is totally false, they can become reinforced, and we can believe them to be totally true if they are externally reinforced or if they are repeated enough. Okay, so let's take all of that and let's talk about the media landscape we live in now. In 1988...
Let's not.
That's what this was about doing. Get the Band-Aid off.
Well, you know, let's all just sing Tear It Up My Heart.
Well, it is fascinating. I mentioned that I am finishing my doctorate at UC San Diego, and we have folks in our department there who study the political economy of media. They look at the resources and the decision-making that goes into the kind of content that gets produced, circulated, reproduced, recirculated. Andrew DeWard is a mentor of mine. If you are interested in his work, I'm happy to share the title of his book. But his research has shown that in 1988, 40% of the theatrical productions that we were seeing in movie theaters were original stories. 40% in 1988. In 2019, that number dropped to 6%.
Wow.
In the media landscape, if we take it as a whole, a few decades ago, 25% was made up of franchise content. Now it's 3/4, nearly 3/4. So what Victoria said, and what all of us I think are getting at, is that yes, nostalgia can be wonderful, right? I mean, I literally was singing the song, the Full House, the opening song, and like everywhere you look.
Yeah, and she's got pipes. She's brilliant, and she's
I have all the words memorized, and I feel so good. My husband was looking at like anime cartoons that he was watching when he was a kid, and he was like, they're coming out with a new Grandizer, it's not going to be very good, I don't know why they're doing this. Right, like we feel good about these past things, but not because the past was perfect. And so I just want to make 2 quick points, and I'll close, Law, but nostalgia can be politicized, and it can be weaponized, okay? Not necessarily by the media folks, but by other folks, the they, right? The big theys. It can be politicized and weaponized because someone can come and tell you that, you know what, that past, the white nationalism, the racism, and the patriarchy of the past,
that was actually a better, simpler, less threatening time. And we need to go back to that. So that is how nostalgia gets weaponized and politicized. It can be manipulated and commodified when the folks that we love in Hollywood, the creators and the people who are putting out original stories, are being told that, oh, you know what, the folks up in Wall Street, the investors, the venture capitalists that are underwriting these shows, they want to play by the logics of safety. Nothing is as successful as success, right? Nothing succeeds like success. The logics of safety say that when we come out with Pitch Perfect 5, literally, or
Which is in development as we speak.
right, you know, that we have a guaranteed audience. That
Every
there's a-
time they do that and money is the goal, then the soul, the heart and soul is sucked out, and the thing that we love, the actual nostalgic factor, is not there anymore. And then the fandoms are crying, what have you done to this thing that we all love and that brought us all together? And they're like, well, what? We just copy and pasted what we've done time and time again. It's like, no, you missed the point in the copy and pasting.
Yeah, and I think that we have to be working, I think as folks who love these industries and who want to be involved creating, we have to be working for a future where, yes, there is financial sustainability, but there's also room for new and exciting and original stories. So I'll leave it at that, but there's much to be said. So yes, I'm so glad we're having this conversation.
Marla came with stats, y'all. That was great. That was good. We all learned something today. The discussion of original content or original filmmaking, I mean, it's no secret, right, that things with existing IPs do a little better. Like, financially, like, it's easier to bank on.
I would
right?
challenge that.
Yeah,
I don't think they necessarily do. I think it's very interesting having worked for two giants, because the two men I worked for at the Ghostbusters franchise, one directed Ghostbusters as well as Old School, or he didn't direct Old School, I'm sorry, he directed Twins and all these other amazing comedies, and his partner was the head of Universal in the 90s. So this is the man who started as a entertainment lawyer, did George Lucas's Star Wars deal, could have just called it there, but because he loved movies, went on to greenlight Jurassic Park and Schindler's List and all these other amazing titles that we all know and love. And what I always say when people ask me what's wrong with the industry, and there's a lot, part of it is that some people, like these Titans, haven't exactly moved on to greener pastures, is that I think since Hollywood has become so corporatized, there's now a corporate mindset of risk aversion, and I get, do the thing that's worked before. And I think that works. I mean, I've only really ever worked in entertainment, so I really can't speak to manufacturing or anything else like that. But that doesn't work with art. And I think it was funny because I was talking with a neighbor. I'm like, well, you know, these movies are doing well. Like Superman just opened. It had this great opening. He was like, well, because there's nothing else to see. So, and I think we've had, especially in the past 2 years, I don't know how many times we have to do this exercise with the 6 men over 65 who run the industry, and Donna Langley, but it seems that when you let the filmmaker make their film, as we've seen with Barbie, as we've seen with Oppenheimer, as we've seen with Sinners, as we've even seen with the new Superman, people want to see it and they go see it and they support it. And I think the thing that concerns me, but also inspired screenplay I wrote and did as a stage reading last month that Dale was, brought down the house, but was how do you find that balance and what are we losing by constantly looking at the past and not investing in the present, so the future is actually something we look forward to. And I think that's, if you want to go see a movie and all that's playing is Marvel, and don't get me wrong, I'm a Marvel stan. Yeah, you're probably going to go see a Marvel movie, or you'll just stay home and watch Full House again on streaming. But I think, again, like that stat you just mentioned, Marwa, makes my brain trip out of my ears, because I think there is obviously a clamoring for it. It's just convincing the suits to make the investment. I think there's part of the reason IP does so well is because have we, especially in the past 5 to 10 years, have we really been offered that many alternatives?
Yeah, so creatively, generally speaking, do you think it's more of a risk to do something original these days? Like, do you think people will write it off. Because like you said, Sinners is a great example, original story, not based in IP.
Another great example, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh,
yes,
Yeah.
I think that was a huge risk, and it was, you know, a lower budget, and they had to overcome so many hurdles to be seen and appreciated. And then when they were, it was so well received because the artistry, it was just dripping in artistry and of clear vision and also camaraderie. Everyone a part of it was driven to make something great. I think that's all it really takes, is just having people who are like-minded and who care about art wanting to make something great. And it is risky, but when you do allow, like I said, when people allow artists to be artists and come together and create some new art, then I think people will respond well to it. But you have to allow that space to breathe. You also have to allow that space to maybe fail. Not everything is going to be a hit. And if some new work comes out and it's not a hit, that doesn't mean that you write off all new original work. It just means now that, okay, there's more trial and error, because that is what art is. It's trial and error. It can't always be perfect. That's not why art is beautiful. Perfection isn't what makes art beautiful.
You know, also from a business standpoint, it's kind of interesting. I'd be curious to see in, say, 10, 15 years, say 15 years, what that generation feels nostalgic about.
Yeah.
Because the things that we're nostalgic about, it was the first one.
Sure, right.
That's why it works. That's how it hits you. If we're down to, what do you say, 6% or something of new material, anybody watching, any kids watching stuff now, it's part 2.
Totally.
Part 3. It's just something that, part 8. It's just something that's there. I would imagine nothing is going to hit them the way, you know, Goonies hit me. You know what I mean? Because it's nothing new. And if you don't invest in that, they can't create new nostalgic fans either. So I think the whole concept of feeding nostalgia, I'd be curious to see what that looks like in 15 years.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious, Dale, do you all think maybe it is riskier not? I mean, the risk
That's
is
my
not,
point.
I think it's actually, maybe it's riskier financially for the suits.
Yeah.
But it's riskier
To not make that investment.
make that investment.
And that's the same conversation to have in every other industry. That's sort of about what are we investing in our future that might be lost leaders today. Every other business does that. I don't see any investment in the next generation of moviegoers.
Yeah. And it just makes me think too, just like thinking out loud, is like the going back to like the past versus the present idea of like the safe zone is being able to do something that's familiar to people from the past because it's like it's in our schema, right? It's like we know that we know it. But like the Sinners, the Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? I think the reason that those risks pay off so well is that instead of playing the safe route of going familiar based on the past, they go familiar based on what's happening right now and what people can really resonate with right now. And I think that's, I'm just taking a guess here, of like why people are so maybe afraid to take that risk, because it's so touchy of like, oh, don't want to touch that subject because who knows if I'm gonna get canceled tomorrow, you know?
Right. It is a sensitive time. It is kind of like a minefield when you're trying new things and when you want to be daring and maybe push the envelope a bit. I also kind of see the culture in that sensitive space. And I think that sensitive space is good because it means people are gaining a lot of awareness and more compassion for just all of the people around us. It's a very diverse world that we live in, and we should respect that. And it hasn't always been respected.
Girl, I was watching Dan Yankees last night, and Gwen Verdon, who is a white woman with blue eyes and ginger hair, was introduced as Lola Hernando. Sorry.
No, it's interesting because like I don't know about y'all, but sometimes when I see how the kids, oh man, I'm old now, but like I see how people are dressing and I'm remembering what I looked like in middle school, and I'm like, what is happening? I saw Dunkaroos at a 7-Eleven, and I said, what is happening? You know what I mean? And so like this is another fantastic.
I gotta go.
Yeah. So I wonder, like, just like for you guys, have you ever been kind of shocked by like the resurgence of something from your past that, you know, wasn't necessarily something that you have on your bingo card from like being drudged up. You know what I mean? Like Fuller House is not something I thought that was gonna be made. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I don't think anybody would.
yeah, there's like a bunch of legacy sequels and stuff, and I'm just Practical Magic too. You mentioned that, Victoria. I was like, what is happening, right?
And also drop in music. I think
Yes.
if I, from my parents' perspective, there are songs that I remember like in my teens singing, that they were samples of music that my parents grew up listening to. And they're like, what you know about that song? What you know about so-and-so? And I'm like, what do you mean? This is this song. And they're listening to it, and then they're now vibing with the music that I'm listening to because it's a sample of a song that they grew up with and that they have a nostalgic connection with. And then now I'm connecting with my parents through this music, you know, and I think that's a really cool and beautiful thing. But then now we're seeing it again, where samples that I grew up with that I didn't know were samples are now being resampled and then also resampled, and then now younger generations are like, oh, I love this song, and now it's so far removed from the original song, and they have no idea that it, you know, that it was, you know, written in the 60s through, or some, you know, songs written through the 60s through the 80s being repurposed right now, that kind of stuff. You know, they have no idea of the origin of the art, and then everything starts sounding the same. Music starts, all music, you know, the chord progressions that you can layer so many songs over each other and mash things up so easily and so quickly. And you're like, wait, what song is it anymore? You know, I think that's something, kind of erasure of individuality with overused nostalgia in music. I just want to throw the music element in there because I feel like that it's so prevalent in the music industry as well.
And to jump on top of that, and also to present the other edge of the sword and the positive edge of the sword, there's good to be mined from that too. And I think it's just framing how nostalgia can work for you and finding that balance. Because I just remember, I remember hearing Better Place by NSYNC on the radio and being like, that's a really fun, catchy song. And I looked, I'm like, who sings it? Because it all sounded oddly, vaguely familiar. And I looked it up and I was like, oh my god, NSYNC! I haven't thought about them since 2004. And then, thanks to the YouTube algorithm, I found myself falling head over feet last summer into their music, and Backstreet Boys and Britney and Christina and all that delicious, great stuff. And it was one of the few times in my life, because I know I'm the girl who put together the nostalgia panel, but I, up until last year, was very anti-nostalgia, and I don't know if it's just because of the things I've experienced a lot of loss in my life, and I'm like, well, stop looking at the past because you never go back. Never go back. Why are you all, like, I know it seems nicer, but we're here and now, and my dad's no longer here, so buck up. If I'm gonna buck up, you have to buck up. But rediscovering the music of boy bands and pop princesses, it was one of the few times in my life, if at all, where I was like, wow, this is better than I remember it. And I think because I'd grown up and I'd learned to appreciate performance more and studied music and like, oh my god, these 5-part harmonies are amazing. And then it inspired me to write an original work that, again, the familiar of right now, inspired by nostalgia getting shoved down my throat. But it created this original thing where again, it's like, whatever happened to BBJ, for me, it was trying to walk that line of giving everyone the nostalgia fix they wanted, but by presenting something new and asking us to look at our relationship with it.
I think it is interesting that you're able to use the concept of nostalgia to do something original while still kind of being inspired by those memories, you know? I think, kind of to your point, Peter, I don't know what's memorable anymore. That's like coming from this day and age. Like, yeah, we'll have some bright spots like the ones that we mentioned, but it is bizarre to me that like when I put on my Spotify, it's like all my elder emo playlists, you know what I mean? Like I'm not really listening to new music, and I don't really know what the psychological component is that, but there is a comfort there, and I think we've kind of discussed that. But there was like a phrase that I saw. It was Svetlana Goin who wrote it, and it said that nostalgic love can only exist in long distance, as in like it's something that it's a home that no longer exists, and I think that's a really haunting way to see that. But with that distance in mind, I open this up to the panel. Is there something that you used to love that has completely kind of lost its charm because it's been shoved down your throat, for lack of a better term.
Name any franchise.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Star Wars, damn, please stop.
And I still love Star Wars. So
Yeah.
I'm going to love Star Wars to the day I die. But it's just a really good example, I think, for those of us that are Star Wars nuts, of trying to feed nostalgia for nostalgia's sake.
Yes.
And then when they do it right, they're creating something brand new and trusting that there's an automatic, authentic connection to the background. And I'm talking about things like Andor.
Exactly.
Which, Star Wars fanatics love Andor. And it's the least nostalgic of everything that they've done on the surface.
Totally.
Right? So, when you think about things like, Stranger Things, that just nailed nostalgia, and it's not on the surface nostalgia.
Yeah.
I'm watching it with my kids and young people, and they're loving it like it's new. And I'm feeling like I'm watching, Lost Boys or Goonies, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're both enjoying it on another level. And, being clever about that, I think, is important. And I think, as an example, Star Wars, unfortunately, has done a lot of pandering, and I end up hate watching everything.
Hate watching has become a thing because of nostalgia
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah.
I think that's so spot on, because I think a lot of times when something succeeds, when some new nostalgia bait franchise or movie succeeds and it's actually not that good, the critics are like, oh, it's so good, and then the audience score is typically like, come on. You know what I mean? And seeing that disparity, I trust the audience score. I trust the fandom. And the fans are going to watch these because they're like, well, I love the IP, so I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it.
Watch it. Mad.
And then we get mad, angry, like, okay, fine, I'm going to watch it. All right, what is it? But they're still getting our money. They're still getting our ratings. So then they're then going back and saying, oh, we succeeded. We did our job. No, you didn't. We're just there because we are honoring the IP that you should have honored. You know what I mean? And we're waiting for that, we're waiting for that one sort of glimmer of hope in the long franchise where they're like, oh yeah, you actually nailed that one. See what you did there? See how you expanded upon the universe instead of just giving us copy and paste and half-hearted references. You know what I mean? That's the difference, and that's the thing. Hate watching that.
That's it right there.
Really, really good. I do a lot of it.
Me too. And then I'm mad at myself for doing it because I know it's feeding into the system. It's perpetuating the system of this nostalgia bait, this half-hearted nostalgia bait. I want the good nostalgia. We just want the good stuff.
Well, could I maybe just add one thing?
Of course.
I think I hear kind of a theme, but I want to remind us that our parents were nostalgic for a time in their lives. And again, I'm not a psychologist, but I kind of integrate a lot of psychology and work that deals with emotion and affect into what I do. And when psychologists ask people in the kind of later stages of their lives about their most intense memories, there's very little from childhood, there's some memory, and then there's what they call this reminiscence hump. There's this big peak in the teens and 20s, and then it kind of goes down again because you start adulting and your brain is literally overloaded and things are dripping out of your brain drips out of your ears, as Victoria said. And so every generation will be nostalgic for things, but I do think we have to question, what are we, wherever we are in our lives, being invited to remember, and at what cost, and to whose benefit, right? And I think those are really essential questions, because my girls now on TikTok, they listen to music and I'm like, I heard that in 7th grade. Where did you get the cranberries? No, that's my song. Linger is my song, right? But yeah, they're listening to it, with a little bit of, maybe a little different mix up, but we all have that nostalgia, and generations past and future will have it. But nostalgia, I think why it's so traumatic when it gets shoved down your throat is because when you nostalgize, I think, and this is again what my reading of this literature tells me, it gives us cohesion to what is otherwise a very disjointed self. Folks, we change. We change as we
get older, I hate to break it to the young people in the crowd, but like, you will not be the same person in your body and soul that you are today 10 years from now. You just won't. But nostalgizing gives us a continuity, and when someone disrupts that,
It's personal.
it's personal! Watch it!
Peter, you had quite the reaction to what Mara was just saying. I'm sure, I'm wondering what's in your head right now.
Okay, I was going to ask y'all earlier, have you guys seen that Nickelodeon documentary, Quiet on the Set?
Yeah.
Again, it's one of those things where it's like, not that I'm gonna like, okay, I'm gonna still watch Nickelodeon, of course, but like, it just completely shifts your whole perspective.
The veil is lifted.
Exactly, and it's like, you know, if I would have known that back then, you know, maybe I would have.
Oh, girl.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
dark.
Yeah. Well, don't. Maybe like
Okay.
tear apart the cohesions. Or,
There's no cohesion after that talk.
yeah. Same thing with the Lisa Franklin.
Right?
Yeah. There you go. You guys got something to watch tonight.
Yeah. Also, Fantastic Four is in theaters right now. You know, it's obviously it's not a sin to enjoy nostalgia. There's like a ton of bright spots, right? So I do want to talk about the good. What are some good examples of nostalgia that you guys consume that you think do it well, that honor the past while also building on stuff that's new? And/or I thought was a great example because Tony Gilroy wrote a story that is perpetually relevant, I think, but it's also still set in a world that we know and love. But what are some other examples? I'm curious what you guys actually think works.
Okay, I have to say this because I just watched it today. Did anybody else watch the first, what is it, season, I think 27 now of South Park, the first episode? I had to resubscribe to Paramount just to watch it. I think South Park is the prime epitome of this, it's the same show, it's the same characters, not a whole lot has changed besides the conversations that they're talking about, right? And I think they're the perfect example of like, you know, I was just, after I watched the first episode today, I had to Google it and I was like, when did South Park start? 1997? Can you believe that?
28 years ago, 27 years?
Yeah, but again, the only thing that has changed is that they know how to say the things that we're all thinking in a way with the tone that we all know and love, and it just hits you. And it's, yeah, if you have not yet watched the first episode, please go do it. That's all I'll say.
Anything else? Like what should, like what's a good example, Victoria? I feel like you might have like a bunch in your head right
I feel like I already said them all. I mean, for me,
That's it. That's all there is.
no. I feel like for me, it was, I was really proud to be a part of Ghostbusters Afterlife because I feel like it honored what came before and then also gave a new generation, a new cast, and a more inclusive cast to fall in love with. So that's something I love.
I heard a lot of good things about Fuller House.
Yeah. Honestly, please watch it so I can get more residuals. We're going to be really real, but also shameless plug. I think DCOM Live does a really good job. The show that I'm a part of is a tribute concert for DCOMs, and we celebrate the movies, the TV shows, and the subsequent music that correlated with those TV shows and movies. And we're not trying to be these people, we're just trying to celebrate and honor them, and I think that's when nostalgia is at its best.
Beautiful. She nailed it.
I recently just watched the new Freakier Friday. It's coming out soon, and I thought it also handled it well because there were like nostalgic beats that are there for us that know the original, but it's a completely new story, completely new characters, but archetypes that we're familiar with. So I do think there's, you know, glimmers of good, and there's obviously the detractors of the bad things too, the double-edged sword of it all. But I do want to give us a moment. Are there any final thoughts on nostalgia? Anything that you've been dying to say that we didn't quite get to, because I know we have to wrap in just a few. No? Nothing? Great.
I mean, if we keep talking, we'll never stop.
Well, I do want to give you all an opportunity to kind of just plug where we can find you. Everyone on this panel is an expert at what they do, and just like the content is so good, I think everyone should give each other a follow. But Bryce, do you mind starting us off, and just we'll go down the line.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I completely dissociated.
Oh,
Hi, I was Bryce Charles, and I will continue to be Bryce Charles at Bryce_Charles on Instagram, and also Bryce.cosplays on Instagram as well.
You can find me on TikTok or Instagram, the Peter Guse, or you can search for the Millennial Reset. You can also find my book on Amazon or wherever you buy books online. It's called When Adulting Feels Insulting.
Get that book. Please follow Always in the Club Foundation. You can find us at Always in the Club everywhere and alwaysintheclub.org. You can find me at Dale Godboldo everywhere. Thank you.
The best place to reach me is actually through my department page at the University of California, San Diego. I am the first graduate student on the page, very hard to miss under our people section, but I'm also on Instagram at Abdallah Marwa, so happy to connect there. Or if you're a LinkedIn person, you can find me there as well.
You can find me at victoriamale.com. That has links to everything. My last name is spelled M-A-L-E, even though it's pronounced Male. And I'm on Instagram at victoriamale1.
Amazing. And I'm Law J. Sharma on all my platforms. If you like silly interview clips and comedy, that's what I do. But I do want to thank Intermyth and Temple of Geek for making this panel happen. Victoria, thank you for bringing us all together. And thank to you guys. I know it's 9 o'clock down on Comic-Con. We are so really grateful for you here. But make sure to give everyone a follow. You can find the graphic online and find us there too. So,
Thank you.